Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Hello, my name is Monique, and I serve as the Board of Library Trustees Chair. And I just wanted to let you know we're going to start soon. I want to encourage that if we have any open seats, I see 2 up front here, that at least individuals know that we do have some seats. And if you do have a seat that is open next to you, if you could just raise your hand. So we have 2 up front, we have 1 over here on the side, and we will pull out more.
We have to go out into the hallway.
Happily. Try to make folks as comfortable as we can.
How many do we have on? One second. Oh, because we're still here. You're just going to leave some space on that side because that's where the line to speak is going to be. So just make sure you're able to get in and out of that space. Make another line. 2 more seats up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Seven oh three. Right? All right. Got our mics on. Everything's ready to go. Good evening, and we will call our meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. on May 8th. I want to welcome and thank you all for attending this evening. And I also want to thank the board and folks for continuing to prepare for our sizable audience. So thank you so very much. So we will start off our agenda tonight with public comment. And we have some procedures that I will go through this evening that have been put up on the board for public comment procedures this evening. So we will offer 45 minutes for this session of our program this evening. We are asking all people who get up to speak tonight to hold their comments to 2 minutes. We do have some signage that thank you, that we have down here. Thank you very much. And, please don't be offended. We're just really trying to make sure that we try to stick to our schedule that we have this evening. So this is a time for public comment, and we ask that we treat one another respectfully and not engage in debate. Public comment time is separate from our trustee discussion time, which will follow. So we appreciate your comments in moving this conversation forward, and we will appreciate everyone's cooperation. So to assist with the order of comment, we ask the following: that individuals please introduce themselves with your name and address. In addition to that, we will have persons line up at the mic. So we do have an aisle over there on the side for folks to get through so that they may come up to the mic and speak. If we have Zoom participants, which we do, who wish to speak, we ask that you please use the Zoom raise hand feature, and we will call on individuals joining us in person as you come up to the mic. Megan, thank you, because I know you will be helping to acknowledge people who are on Zoom. And we want everyone to have the opportunity to speak who would like to. So we will respectfully allow those who want to speak and have not had the opportunity to speak to do so before we call on someone who has already spoken. So with that said, we can begin our public comment, and we will start with Mr. Monahan.
Go to public comment, that's when we get you. There's your material.
Mike Monahan, Bancroft Ave, Reading, Massachusetts. My name is Mike Monahan. I'm the person that filed the request for the Reading Library to remove from circulation the book Genderqueer. My request is predicated on two reasons. One, the book contains images that are illegal child pornography, and two, those images are not congruent with the community standards of Reading. Page 61 contains images of what appear to be children that are naked and engage in explicit sex acts by lying on top of each other, kissing with their penises area engaged in what the book terms hip thrusting. The text in the book indicates that the children might be about 12 years of age. Page 167 contains an image of a partially naked child with his erect penis inserted into the mouth of another child engaged in an act that the book terms a, quote, a blowjob on page 166. The illustrations are illegal child pornography as defined by 18 U.S.C. 1466A, which in part states, visual representations such as drawings, cartoons, or paintings that appear to depict minors engaged in sexual activity are obscene and illegal under federal law. I would like to now respond to reasons for not removing the book that I've heard members of this board and the community members state. Reason one, the library does not want to ban books as a general matter of policy. My response, the library already does ban books from circulation by making choices to not include in circulation books that are not congruent with community standards. For example, the library has effectively banned publications such as Hustler magazine, the Anarchist Cookbook, and various Dr. Seuss books and other similar publications. With that in mind, the issue then becomes not if books will be removed from circulation, but which books will be removed from circulation. Reason two, the library does not want to remove Genderqueer from circulation because it offers value to the LGBTQ+ community. My response, if Genderqueer is removed from circulation, there would remain many other similar publications in circulation that do not contain images of children naked and engaged in sex acts. Even if the book Genderqueer offered some unique value that no other book does, there is no scenario in my mind that should legitimize the library distributing a publication, especially from the teens sections, and remember, teens are still children, a publication that contains child pornography. Reason three, removing Genderqueer from circulation is a fruitless endeavor because children can still obtain the publication from other libraries or their smartphones. My response, the library should hold itself to a higher and better standard that meets our own community standards and not the standard of the World Wide Web or other libraries and other communities. Reading Public Schools do not have in circulation this book, Genderqueer. Thus, it seems to me that the schools in Reading have concluded that the book does not meet our community standards, and I urge that the library endeavor to meet that same standard. Some miscellaneous information. Amazon has this book, and they have an age 18 warning on the book, yet the library offers this book to any child of any age with or without a parent accompanying them. Recently, the book Genderqueer was discussed on a television news show wherein a mother was prohibited from showing images from this book. Is my time up?
Yes, Mr.
Totally and completely?
Yes,
It's 3:30.
I
thank
had
you.
so much more to say.
Thank you very much.
I'm a little shorter. I
Eileen Laterio, Deborah Drive. I'm a 40-year resident, educator at levels K through 8, high school level writing coach, a seasoned town meeting member, and the past Massachusetts Teacher of the Year finalist. In that capacity, I enjoy a special relationship with students and their families. My priority has been and always will be to develop and protect their social, emotional, and intellectual health and safety. I'm here to stand up and represent these values. My issue doesn't pertain to anyone's sexual orientation or identity. It pertains to the sexually explicit images in the book, Genderqueer. Library personnel who think that these images are appropriate for minors entering a middle school or high school, already overburdened with adjustments, are misguided. His question: those who are responsible for placing porno literature in a teen room with ages ranging from 11 years old to 17, did you do your due diligence in actually reading and viewing these images of blatant nudity, obscene sexual fantasies, vulgarity, hatred of oneself, the peddling of sex toys, pedophiliac perversion, and abuse of a minor, just to name a few? In closing, the reality is advocates who support obscene images like these are intent on sexualizing our youth. The solution is simple. Remove this book from the teen room. Perhaps place it in an adult section where together parents and mature teens can discuss its content. This book is not age appropriate for minors, and any argument to the contrary flies in the face of decency and is truly heinous. Thank you.
Yeah, we have one online.
Check quickly, just to see if we have anyone online.
Oh, sure. Raise your hand. If you're online, you need to raise your hand.
Got it. That makes more sense. Sorry about that.
Please, you may go. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Liz Whitelam. I'm the owner of Whitelam Books at 610 Main Street in Reading, and I live at 7 Gilmore Avenue in Reading for 20 plus years. When my husband and I were deciding where to make our home, you may not be surprised to learn that I evaluated the public library in every town we considered as part of our process. The Reading Public Library was and continues to be an incredible asset to this town. And since I opened this bookstore, I've had the great privilege of frequently partnering with the Reading Public Library in ways large and small to promote literacy in this community. I have been consistently struck by the incredible professionalism, expertise of the library staff, and impressed by the care they provide this community. At the bookstore, much like the library, we strive to provide a welcoming environment for all. From the moment we opened, we have been an active participant in the New England Independent Bookseller Association Windows and Mirrors project. Inspired by the work of Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, whose essay Mirrors, Windows, and Sliding Glass Doors asserts, literature transforms human experience and reflects it back to us. And in that reflection, we can see our own lives and experiences as part of the larger human experience. Reading then becomes a means of self-affirmation, and readers often seek their mirrors in books. When there are enough books available that act as both mirrors and windows for all our children, they will see that we can celebrate both our differences and our similarities, because together they are what make us all human. What has been a consistent through line in our experience at the bookstore is that people young and old find solace and affirmation in literature. Books provide a way for people to feel connection and belonging, and provide a safe place to explore experiences, identity, and ideas. The library affords this opportunity with even more breadth and more privacy than the bookstore. Restricting access to books like Genderqueer is counterproductive. We all deserve to see ourselves reflected in literature, and we all should strive to learn about other people's lived experiences. Reading builds empathy, empathy builds compassion. I trust the highly qualified, skilled, and compassionate staff of the Reading Public Library to make careful decisions about the library collection, and I urge you to reject alarmist attempts at banning books. Thank you.
We appreciate everyone's comments. We have to ask that we don't applaud at the end. Anyone on? No? Okay, great, please.
Good evening. My name's Alicia Modestino. I live on Winthrop Ave in Reading. I purchased and read Genderqueer and affirm that this book is not pornographic, but rather is an award-winning graphic novel memoir that explores the author's journey through discovering their sexuality and gender in a world that's very heteronormative and binary. In 2020, Genderqueer was given 2 awards by the American Library Association, a Stonewall Honor, and an Alex Award, which recognizes books published for adults that hold crossover appeal for readers aged 12 to 18. The book follows the author from childhood to adulthood, providing queer kids with access to accurate and safe information about day-to-day experiences like the gender dysphoria of getting your period and not being able to find clothes that really fit. There's only one panel in the entire book that is controversial, and it references a scene with a Greek vase and Plato's Symposium, but it does not condone pedophilia in any way. Though there are explicit scenes, it wasn't extremely shocking, and there are similar scenes in other graphic novels found in the teen health section, including Diagnostic Sketch, You Know Sex, A Graphic History of Sexuality, About Betty's Boobs, and my favorite, The Story of My Tits. This book benefits in terms of the mental health of queer and transgender youth is far greater than the cost of exposing heterosexual youth to these issues and or offending people's sensibilities about material that makes them uncomfortable. We have a responsibility to all of our youth, heterosexual and LGBTQ. No matter your gender or sexuality, identity is very complex and it changes and evolves throughout our entire lives. Since 1990, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network has surveyed queer youth every 2 years for the National School Climate Survey. And according to their report, only 16% of LGBTQ students reported LGBTQ topics being included in textbooks or other assigned readings. Only 48% surveyed they could find books or information on LGBTQ-related topics. And 45% of youth seriously considered suicide in the past year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Calvobacci. I live at Main Street. As a college graduate, my major was in English, and I paid for said education by working for 3 different bookstores. I do not support banning books. I definitely support literature and the right to read books, especially those books that are banned. I highly recommend people read them so we can have an open discussion. That is something that I really wish we would do as a community, because this topic does contain very sensitive issues that are not appropriate for children. As an employer of children and as a volunteer with the Girls Inc. in Lynn, I do deal with a lot of children who come from diverse backgrounds and very challenging backgrounds to which they don't necessarily have access to education and parental support. I have given this book to my children, and our youngest child had read it. We've been able to have a discussion about the book, and what came from the discussion is it wasn't something that she felt comfortable reading if she had to read it in school, and it would not be something that she would feel comfortable reading to children if she were watching them and they had the book in their house. Based on that, I strongly recommend that the book be taken out of the children's section and put in an area with a disclaimer, just in being really thoughtful to, I would welcome a community discussion. I think it's something that we should all be able to have a thoughtful discussion about the book and have supports available for children that may need this. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to check online?
No, we don't have anyone. Thank you for asking.
371 Pearl Street. I'm here because I was probably one of several thousand people who signed a petition asking you not to remove this book from the library. As a mental health clinician, I'm also here urging you not to remove this book from the library and to keep it in the teen section. I think the book is appropriate for kids in middle school and high school. And the only thing I would urge you to do is order more books and perhaps have a book club to invite some of the adults in Reading to actually read the book and discuss it. But I really urge you not to remove this book. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. John Sullivan, Weston Road. I'm a 20-some-odd-year resident of Reading. I'm the father of 2 elementary school-aged kids. I'm the son of a librarian. Just want to say that I think I've read this book. I think this book can provide a valuable perspective to the children that choose to read it. I think that it gives them insight into feelings that maybe they're having, or maybe more likely feelings that their peers or their friends or eventually their coworkers and other peers could be having. And having access to this and having read it to make them more understanding and more empathetic and members of society. And I think that there's great value in that. In addition to reading this book, I've read the complaints. I'm requesting that the book be removed from the library. And if any of you haven't had a chance to read the book, I think it's worth pointing out how inaccurate the complaint is. I think they got the title of the book right. I'm not sure if there's anything else true in there. So I think if somebody wants to take it upon themselves to remove access to everybody in town of a book, they should actually read the book before doing that. And I hope that you keep that in mind when deciding to keep this book in the library in the section that's available to its target audience. And then just on a lighter note, I was trying to get a copy of this book. Apparently it's very popular. There's a wait list for it 10 miles long. So I learned about the Hoopla app on your website, which I'm kind of disappointed I didn't know about sooner. It's a fantastic service, and kudos to whoever on the board or on staff came up with that and made that available. So thank you very much.
You can continue. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jay Wallace. I live on 4th Street. I too have 2 young girls in the public schools, and my mother was also a librarian. So I'm a Reading resident and father of 2 girls, one at Birch Meadow, one soon to be at Birch Meadow. I'm also a 3rd grade teacher in Wakefield. I heard about this request and decided I want to be here to say a few words in support of genderqueer. Book bans have the ironic effect of building interest in books. I had never read this before, and I just took out The Complete Mouse upstairs to see why that's been banned in the past. I don't know, but I'm excited to learn. You hear about book bans all throughout history. Many reasons are given, depictions of violence or sex or offense taken to the few being written about. If you look at the 10 most banned books of 2022, 6 of them were for LGBTQIA content. So I read the book, and I can see why people want to ban it. It's excellent. People are going to want to read it. It gives an incredibly honest and open window into the life of its author, a life that has thus far been spent feeling discomfort with their gender and expectations of society, and subsequently trying to figure out who they are. Speaking for myself, I can absolutely say that I learned something. I felt so much empathy for the author. Yes, it has pictures and material about sex, but the story is about how the author learns that they're not interested in sex. And the few images or scenes that are decried as offensive are followed by moments of genuine understanding by a partner, or self-discovery by the author, or some element of personal growth. I found it to be beautiful. At the end of the day, though, this is a public library. The job of the library is to be a place of learning and civic engagement. A library should value education and equity. Our library has 6 selection criteria, and this book meets or exceeds all of them. Its status as the most banned book of 2022 already speaks to its popularity, and I can personally speak to its high quality. It can offer representation to members of our community who silently cry out for someone to understand them, or for others like me, an opportunity to learn and develop empathy. Please keep genderqueer in our library. Thank you.
Brian Curry, Haverhill Street. Discussion tonight is not about a book. It's about protecting all children. No child should be exposed to pornography. There are 3 laws that this book in question tonight violates. It is such a low bar that we do not want our children exposed to pornography. But sadly, not only this book, but many other books in this library do not meet that standard. I'm glad that we referenced several of those books or other books, because I'd like to talk about that. There are books in our library that describe how to have sexual encounters with adults, how to use lube for sexual devices, where our children should put them in their body for sexual gratification, how to perform oral sex and various other sexual acts. Why are children, there's a book that has an app that provides instruction on how to, it's an adult sex app that provides instruction for our children to go meet adults for sexual encounters. This issue in libraries and schools is so out of control that there are websites that help and assist parents in finding inappropriate books in libraries and schools. We found close to 100 highly inappropriate books. Many of those books are in the teen section. I'm going to read some of the content. This is a book that has obscene sexual assault, sexual nudity. It's for teenagers in the teen section. Who's been sending dick pics to my private email? Page 44, she got way too drunk at parties. She gave blowjobs to the wrong guys and then told it to the wrong girls. Page 55, I think they banged her. I think they actually raped her. They raped her, and that's why she committed suicide. That's one book in our teen section. Here's another book. A promiscuous high school student gives sex advice to other teenagers. That is the content. Page 1 talks about children having a foursome. Okay? There's another page where it talks about children masturbating. Okay, I will close with this, okay? I have a stack full of these type of content, okay?
Thank you, your time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Mine are here. So go.
Cheryl Lestrade, 22 Gould Street. As I look around this room, I look at parents who are here to support their kids, whether it's one student or another, heterosexual or not. And I ask you, because you don't choose your child to read something or to hear something, what gives you the right to decide what other families want to educate their children on, what other families choose to support their children on? What gives you that right? You can choose to have your child not take that book out the library, but who do you think you are to decide that everyone else's child does not deserve that representation? To understand how they are feeling, to understand what they are going through. We teach our children from a young age what is sexually appropriate, but then we ask them to shield them. Who are you to decide that? You're parents of your child and your child alone, not the parents of every child in this district. It's about educating them and supporting them. And I ask you to really think about that. Yes, it may be the reality that we don't want to live with, but it's the reality of some of these children's lives. And if you can't choose to support your child, then who will or who won't? And at the end of the day, I would rather them read it and have a conversation and understand what they're going through and find support than to decide to commit suicide at the end of the day because they have none.
Just a reminder of no applause, please.
I'm Chris Moriarty on Pearl Street. I do want to thank everyone for voicing their concerns, no matter what. Getting up here is a little bit nerve-wracking. We've heard a couple of instances where this book, Gender Queer, was accused of having child pornography, and even the statute defining what child pornography was read to us. There's never been any mention of any times that genderqueer has been found in violation of any of these statutes, federal or local, as well as my neighbor from Bancroft mentioned that it is widely available on Amazon and other bookstores and libraries, which seems to suggest to me that regardless of what the definition of child pornography is, this book probably doesn't need it because no federal or local law enforcement have filed cases or the book has not been found in violation of any of these statutes. So whatever child pornography is, it doesn't seem like it's this book. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Johnson. I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight, but I decided I had to. I have a 19-year-old transgender daughter, and I got this book for her, and she read it, And the first thing she said to me was, Mom, this would have answered so many questions and helped me so much when I was in middle school. I said, well, what age do you think you might have benefited from it? She said, probably around 11 or 12 when I started going through puberty. So I respectfully disagree with the folks in here who have said we need to protect our children from this. I think what you need to do is have a conversation with them about what's in the book, or if you so choose, don't let them read it if you don't want them to read it. I think that's your choice. I, for one, am thrilled that there are now books like this available for children to read. And I think that's all I have to say.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Lucy, I live on Pearl Street. I didn't plan on commenting, but, a few weeks ago I called the library, and the librarian told me she doesn't understand what the big deal is about the book being in the tea room, because these books are available throughout the whole entire library, right? So you can have a 10-year-old child go to any part of the library, take out any material. A child at 10 years old can take out an R-rated movie. A 10-year-old child could come and take out an M for mature video game. A 10-year-old child can come and take a sexually explicit book, magazine. My children cannot go to the movies and see an R-rated movie, right? They can't go to GameStop and buy a shooter game that's mature, right? They can't do it. The library allows them to do that. I don't disagree with any of you people that, have had trans kids or anything like that, right? But I think you need to look at your policy and maybe perhaps have a set, two sets of library cards, one for children whose parents want their children to have access to everything, and then maybe a library card for parents who want age-appropriate material for their children. I want to read an excerpt from the book that people are saying that it's not really offensive or whatever they're saying. Fast forward, we've been dating for months. We've made out, we've had sex, we've moved on to sexting at work. Welcome to the library. It says a little card there, welcome to the library. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on for you. It'll fit you up my new dildo perfectly. You're gonna look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside me. This is the most turned on I've ever been. I am dying. That's not age appropriate for a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid. If you think it is, you're crazy. This is a visual I've been picturing, but I can't, it says, but I can't feel anything. This is so much hotter when I imagined it. Let's try something also. Then there's another statement which is kind of messed up too. It's between two sisters. I don't know if sisters necessarily talk like this. It never really occurred to you putting something in your vagina, not even a finger? It really didn't.
I'm sorry.
So you've never.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you never tasted yourself?
Time's
What?
up.
No, wait, you have.
Time's up.
All inclusivity, right?
So Matthew Briarwood Avenue. This discussion shouldn't be confused as one side of the audience favoring trans rights and another being transphobic. Reading is investing significant energy and resources, both public and private, into the issues of inclusivity and diversity. For example, the Pride Parade, Pride Storytime with Drag Friends, Gay Straight Alliance, Office of Equity and Social Justice, Partners and Allies for Inclusive Reading, and the Reading Public Schools investment in sense of belonging initiatives. A great deal of effort is being made to support youngsters and students. What this discussion is about is the educational and social value of placing a sexually graphic book in a public library with an intended audience that includes teenage minors. The library's internet access for minors policy reads, minors shall not access material harmful to minors. Let's quote. The responsibility for what minors read or view on the internet rests with a parent or caregiver. We agree that minors are susceptible to content both online and physical. No matter the genders involved, graphically depicting sexual behaviors made readily available to teens has never proven to be vital to the development of outstanding citizenship. Let's review genderqueer.
as he stole my thunder there, but let's review it again. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. It jumps over to the next page where a teenage boy is on his knees, sucking the dildo strapped onto the protagonist. Later on, it goes on to discuss the development of his masturbation techniques. In the library, the teen room and any other designated teen space are reserved for youth aged 12 to 18 or in grades 6 through 12. Parents, caregivers, teachers, and adults are permitted in these spaces only when accompanying a youth or actively using or searching the collections. We parents demand the right to parent our children, whether we're present or not. Keep sexually explicit material from them, whether using a library desktop or searching the collections.
My name is Johnny Russo. Live in Reading. There's 2 children. School. Why do we need this kind of education? Very different kinds of people. These who like to be different. These are just points I'm making. In bringing this book to young people, I feel it's very wrong. For the child, as far as older people, you can have what you like, but I still think it's inappropriate. We have enough trouble educating people in the basics. And it's idiotic, I'll repeat, idiotic to displace real education with this kind of material that we're talking about. For those who are on this side, there's a gentleman by the name of William Yates. He came up with a statement, the best lack all conviction. And this is for people on my side. They lack all conviction. Yet, the words are full of passion and intensity. Passion and intensity. This is a gentleman who wrote this particular writing about 100 years ago. So I'm not against having books, but not like this.
Time's up.
I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to remind us again, no applause at the end, please. Thank you.
Helena Johnson, 21 Orchard Park Drive. I am against removing genderqueer from the public library and also against moving it to another restricted location. I want to make a quick note that I believe that the library might be or already have a tween section if parents feel their kids are too old to go or should be going to the tween section and not the teen room. This book challenge is 2 things. First, it's an attack on everyone's freedom of speech and First Amendment rights. It's also an attack on the rights of our LGBTQI community. This is clear since genderqueer has been singled out, while other controversial titles like Lolita and 50 Shades of Grey remain unchallenged. Like these books, genderqueer has not been deemed pornography. It is not up to the Board of Library Trustees, the library staff, or a member of our community to determine which books are pornography. Pornography is defined based on court cases, and if someone has a problem with how this book is defined, they can take it up with the courts. Having LGBT books available in our library allows teenagers and young adults to feel seen and heard. This book could very well be saving grace to a young non-binary or asexual individual. It could spare them isolation and confusion. Let's get to the end. Do you really want to ban helpful books, cut off lifelines for young people, or erase groups of people from existing? People flee other countries and risk their lives to be here because the United States, we have the freedom to be ourselves. Other people want freedom too, and that's why they come here. Freedom of speech is the basis of all freedom, and this is what makes our country great. So let me get this straight. The person who requests a book ban wants to use his First Amendment rights to take the First Amendment rights away from others.
Your time is up.
You can't have selective freedom of speech. It doesn't work that way. As soon as you have selective freedom of speech, freedom of speech no longer exists.
Thank you, Vanessa Alvarado, Mount Vernon Street. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our amazing library staff who make the Reading Public Library a warm, inclusive, and inviting place for our community. I'd also like to thank the volunteers who make up the Board of Library Trustees. It is not easy to sit in front of a room like this, but your role here is so important. So thank you all for everything that you do and for your thoughtfulness here this evening.
Brian Paulson, John Carver Road. You know, it's been really educational listening to everybody speak from both sides. I think everybody just wants what's best for their kids. And what that one woman said, like, who are we to say what's better for your kid? I certainly don't. I certainly can't tell you what's better for your kid. And you can't tell me what's better for my kid. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the pictures and I've heard the quotes, and I definitely wouldn't want my 11-year-old picking it up on the way to her summer reading rack in the teen section. But I gotta say, I have been doing a little bit of research, and there are way worse books in this library, in the teen section. Tricks by Ellen Hopkins. This book contains sexually explicit excerpts involving minors. There are excerpts containing explicit child rape and abuse, illegal drug use, graphic violence, underage alcohol consumption, and adult child prostitution. I think we can all agree that that is way worse. Sold by Patricia McCormick. This book contains explicit sexual activities, including rape of a minor, prostitution. I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up because this is, in my mind, worse. And explicit violence of minors. Instead of looking at this one particular book, maybe we branch out and see what other kind of stuff is in this library that could be really damaging to our children. If any of these kids picked up some of these books and read some of these paragraphs, it's horrifying. Thank you.
Rebecca Ward. I'm on Kingston Street. I'm a mom of an 11 and 13-year-old, and I'm also a biologist. So I really enjoy books that are recommended by the Journal of American Medical Association, which Genderqueer was in 2019. It was considered one of the best medical graphic novels that there was of the year. What I would like to say is that I have been a little surprised at what the exposure has been from things in middle school that my kids are around, whether or not your kid has TikTok, one of their friends has TikTok, and the stuff they're picking up and learning about is things I didn't know about for, a long time, but they are. And so what I think is really great about books is that they're not just getting the little snip they get on TikTok, the little snip they hear from their friends. It's putting everything in context. It's putting everything in context that, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't like this. This isn't me. And they're able to really understand the full experience of the person and see themselves in it and how they feel that they can maybe handle things going on. Somebody mentioned there's also books that talk about violence and with children, I'm assuming teenagers in the book, I'm not sure which one he was referring to, but many of you probably know things like sexual violence against adolescent girls is extraordinarily high right now. Books like this are important for kids to see themselves in these books, the whole context, and understand how best they can help themselves. And so I fully support having this book here, I say.
Hi, Marion Growney. I live on Estate Lane. I also was not planning on speaking today, but I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that I've heard from the mom who said, let's all parent our own children. And I would really like to stand up for that. I'd also like to encourage people that are against it that have not read the book to read the book. I've read the book because I wanted to be able to understand what people were talking about. Yes, there's some things that are explicit, but like many people have mentioned, there's a lot of explicit material out there that our kids are seeing. And if this book prevents one teenager from committing suicide, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And if you read this book, those explicit things are a beautiful, healthy sexual relationship between two equally aged teenagers. And if that should be represented, it was a consensual experience. They talked about it in a healthy way. I encourage people that are against the book to read the whole thing, not flip to the things that are controversial. Get the whole setting. Don't just read those pages. I urge you not to take it off the shelves, please. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is anybody online?
We have no one online. Nope. Do we have any additional comments before we move to our next agenda item? Oh, yes.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Christina Eckenroth, Woburn Street. I work for the Department of Labor, and I wasn't intending on speaking until I heard some comments referencing books that referred to child prostitution, abuse, sexual abuse, human trafficking. And I wanted to make it clear that human trafficking and other experiences like abuse are often hidden. And in the Department of Labor, we have massive campaigns of see something, say something, trying to alert the public to situations which may reflect human trafficking or abuse. Books that represent this horrible and awful experience that people have are very important to raise awareness that you are not alone. If this awful experience has happened to you, you can see you're not alone. Other people it's happened to as well. People get trapped in situations because they don't know that it happens. They don't realize that they're not the only person this has ever happened to. And you know, kids, teenagers think, well, I'm the only one, because that's how teenagers work, right? Very centrally oriented. But books of a broad range that show individuals in various different situations, even bad ones, have value, because it helps them to realize that they're not alone and help others to recognize when one of their friends may be experiencing something. So in that note, I wanted to let you know, please don't ban books of a variety of different experiences, because they're important to bring these issues to light and ensure everyone knows that they're not alone, even if they're experiencing something detrimental to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you on behalf of the board for participating in public comment. We're going to move to item, important for me to say, public comment is closed. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the second agenda item, and that will be the trustee discussion on public library request for reconsideration of the book Gender Queer, memoir by Maya Kobabe. There. So we will have a presentation slideshow on the book Gender Queer. The board received this information in our packet.
My name is Amy Lannon. I'm the director of the Reading Public Library. First, I want to, the information I'm going to present to you is not my information. Our head of collection services, our collection services librarian.
Amy?
Yep.
A little louder, please.
Oh, I don't have a microphone. So what I'm about to present to you is a compilation or is a collaboration of various professionals in our library putting together information regarding this particular book. On March 6, 2023, a resident submitted a request for reconsideration of materials to the Board of Library Trustees and to the Reading Public Library administrative email account. The email submission included, quote, attached to this email is my request that you remove from Reading Public Library a book titled Genderqueer because the book contains graphic depictions of illegal child pornography. The person indicated he had read the entire book and cited and described 2 specific pages from the graphic novel asserting the content is child pornography and a felony crime to possess or distribute. Just a moment to go over some of the guiding principles from our current collection development policy, which can be found on the library's website. The library does not advocate particular beliefs or views. The selection of any given item is not an endorsement of the viewpoint expressed. The great diversity of the library's customers means that the library must do more than provide materials for the common denominator in order to be effective. It is deemed the responsibility of the parents and caregivers to determine what their children may read, watch, or listen to, and the selection of material is not restricted by the possibility that young people may obtain material their parents and caregivers may consider inappropriate. Genderqueer, a memoir by Maya Kobabe. Genderqueer is an award-winning memoir in the form of a graphic novel, which is a specific type of media. The library's purchase history for this particular title, in 2019, the first edition came out, and the library purchased both a digital and physical copy. In 2022, Oni Press released a second edition of this, and the library again purchased a physical and digital copy of this item. Based on circulation, demand, and a missing copy, the library then ordered 3 more physical copies of the first edition and 1 physical copy of the second edition. 4 physical copies are dedicated to the young adult collection, and 1 physical copy is currently in the Health Nook, and another copy is in processing for the Health Nook. The Health Nook is actually considered a generic, I guess we can say adult, but we don't mean adult like exclusively. It's a collection of health related materials. It happens to be near the teen spot. That book is in processing. And a digital copy is available both through Overdrive and through the Hoopla service. I'd also like to remind the trustees what considerations the library goes through when ordering new or replacement copies, or why we have multiple copies of things. The library looks at multiple things. We look at the conditions, we look at the demand and availability of the titles when purchasing them. So this means that if there's 1 copy and there are 10 people reading, there is a generally mathematical formula that we calculate to get additional copies to meet the need, so you don't have to wait as long as you have to. We try to reduce that time as much as possible. It's also common practice to increase or decrease that number of copies over a period of time. We may start off with 12 and then reduce it to 3, depends on the popularity. An example of that would be our bestsellers, where we have multiple copies of hardcovers or soft covers, and then they're no longer on the bestseller list, and then we get rid of them. We also look at the condition of the item. Does it need to be replaced? Is it damaged? We look at related programs. So for example, if there's a book group, such as there was there was a group of adults that read this, we might order more copies so that the people involved with the book group can have more access to it. We look at the number of holds, as I mentioned. And the last 2 things, which are items that are long overdue or that go missing. Long overdue means someone has it and they won't return it. Missing means somehow it has walked away from our shelves, which does happen occasionally. So that's the reason why we have multiple copies or we reorder things. I just also wanted to give you some context. Our staff looked at the Reading Public Library. We are a member of the North of Boston Library Exchange, NOBLE, and that is a consortium of 23 public and academic libraries. Cardholders from all 23 libraries can access all the materials on Overdrive, which includes a digital copy of this. Actually, using the reciprocal lending agreement, they can actually access copies of Genderqueer that are available on Overdrive from the Boston Public System, the Minuteman System, the CW Mars, Minuteman, multiple systems. So they have access to more than one copy on Overdrive. Locally, we also have, as someone mentioned, a copy available to Hoopla. Those are only available, that copy is only available to Reading residents. Just to note that there are 11 other libraries in communities in Noble that have that, so we are not the only one who has Hoopla. As mentioned, Reading has other multiple copies plus one in processing, and 18 other libraries out of the 23 in the network, 18 other libraries have at least one physical copy. If you look at the circulation, these for our numbers are regular and consistent. There's been a total of 29 circulations or checkouts from the Overdrive, 52 for the library copies. That actually, this information is a few weeks old, so it might actually be a little bit more. And when we pulled this information, the total number of the copies in Noble had circulated 145 times, which indicates a regular and steady demand.
Amy, can I ask a question? Are those circulation numbers from the original acquisition?
Yeah. And I'll just note that the circulation is only one element of when we look at it. Shelf location, we were asked to speak about shelf location. When we say that shelf location, it refers to where the item is in the library. Most items, many items are in one shelf location. However, some titles may be found in more than one shelf location. For example, Harry Potter might be in the children's room, the teen area, and the adult audiobooks. For reference, 67% of the libraries with physical copies have this title in their young adult or YA teen areas. And I want to be clear that YA and teen are generally separated from children's. In our case, in the building, it is a whole separate floor away. Some libraries do have their youth services mixed with children's and teens together, but we don't do it that way. As mentioned earlier, this is a memoir in the form of a graphic novel. So 6 other libraries have their item labeled graphic novel. Because they don't have a teen or YA modifier, we're assuming that they're just a generic, everybody can look at it, adult kind of graphic novel. Publishers and authors typically determine the appropriate audience for materials. Librarians will also look at the age recommendation for things in journal reviews and descriptions provided by our distributors. So we look at all of those things and make a decision for shelf location based on that. The Reading Public Library has looked at the physical holdings of our surrounding communities. And when I say that, those are the ones that are pretty much bordering us, but also that we see a lot of residents typically visiting. We see reciprocal services, either Reading people going to other libraries. We can also see other community people who use our library. Looking at libraries that Reading residents also commonly use. 2 of them, Wakefield and Linfield, are in Noble. They each have a copy. And MBLC, which is a neighboring network, North Reading, Wilmington, and Andover, has these copies, Wilmington and Andover, with multiple copies. Interestingly, Andover looks to have it in their summer reading collection. And Woburn, who's also a bordering town, is in the Minuteman network. They do have it in their adult collection. These do not reflect any of those digital copies that I spoke about earlier that are available via Overdrive, Libby, and Hoopla. I also provided to you summaries from these. These are much longer school library journals. Booklist, School Library Journal, and Publishers Weekly are 3 extremely reputable professional standards and things and resources that we use when doing collection development. So I will let you read through that. I'm happy to provide you with links to the full reviews. Any questions, board?
Do you take questions from the audience?
No. It's a chart.
Can you show the slide that just has all the other libraries just had it in the adult section and none of them have it in the kids section? Maybe can you clarify that slide?
So Wakefield has a copy in the adult section, Lindenfield has a copy in the YA section. North Reading has it in the adult collection, Wilmington has it both in the YA and adult collections. Andover has it both in the YA and adult collections, and that includes some books held in storage for their summer reading program. Minuteman has it in their adult collection.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what age would be young adult?
Would you like to recognize that question?
I think we should hold off.
Same question.
Yeah.
11?
Adult equivalent to our teen room?
Our young adult collection, we have overlap for grade 6. So the children's and tween room, which is upstairs, is generally considered birth through grade 6. The teen area is grade 6 through high school and young emerging adults.
So what we will do moving forward as our public comment is closed, we will completely just stick with finishing the presentation, and then we'll move forward to there into our board discussion.
So based on all of this that we presented you, the library staff, including the head of collection services, the teen librarian, the head of public services, and several other librarians, including myself, have met, and we have reviewed all of this information. The title meets or exceeds the selection criteria outlined by the Reading Public Library Collection Development Policy. Circulation of the book increased after the request for reconsideration of materials. However, prior to that, the existing physical copies demonstrated enough demand, meaning circulation, to remain part of the collection. I also wanted to note that according to the American Library Association, and with regard to censorship, this particular request for reconsideration requests the complete removal of the book. Removing this book from the collection is censorship and also referred to as banning. According to the ALA, a library may move an item between collections, most commonly between children's and YA, or YA and young and adult. Librarians make these decisions based on a variety of reasons, with thoughtful discussion and acknowledging that the American Library Association warns that moving books to a different collection from its intended audience can be a form of censorship, as it provides it adds an additional barrier to access for the intended audience. Finally, with regards to pornography, agencies, publishers, and courts determine pornography if the work as a whole is solely meant to elicit sexual arousal. Courts use the Miller test to determine obscenity, including all child pornography. The 3 points of the Miller test are whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards finds the matter taken as a whole appeals to prurient interests, such as an erotic, lascivious, abnormal, unhealthy, degrading, shameful, or morbid interest in nudity, sex, or excretion. Number 2, whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards finds that the matter depicts or describes sexual contact in a patently offensive way. I won't read through those. And thirdly, whether there's a reasonable person finds that the matter taken as a whole lacks a serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value.
Excuse me, we cannot hear you at all back here. Can you get a microphone to speak up?
Sure.
Thanks.
Is that working?
Those are on. That's a different microphone.
Oh, it's for the,
Yep.
oh, so everyone, I told my computers again.
So we were talking about, so this item, I'll just go over it again, the slide again, meets or exceeds the collection development standards. And the circulation of the book increased after the RFR. However, prior to that, the existing physical copies demonstrated enough demand that it remained part of the collection. The request is to remove the title from the collection. Removing the title from the collection is censorship, also referred to as banning, according to the American Library Association. The library may move items between collections, and when we make this decision, librarians may take into account a variety of reasons with thoughtful discussion and acknowledging that the American Library Association specifically warns that moving a book to a different collection can be a form of censorship, as it adds a barrier to access for the intended audience.
The last thing I was speaking about, for those of you who couldn't hear, is that basically there is no evidence this book meets the definition of pornography or child pornography. This is agencies, publishers, and the courts will determine that. And there are specific guidelines, one of which is whether the book as a whole is solely meant to elicit sexual arousal. The courts will also use a Miller test to determine all obscenity, including child pornography. That is a 3-point, I am not a lawyer, so I won't go into it, but that's a 3-point test. But at this point, it's not been determined. Any book that satisfied the 3-prong Miller test may be found to be obscene. So as I said, that does not meet that. So the analysis and recommendation based on the information, circulation, local and surrounding communities, its value as an award-winning graphic novel. Our recommendation is to leave the title in the current collections, which include the young adult and health collections, adding or reducing the numbers of physical copies in accordance to our usual standards, such as condition, demand, programs, missing, or long overdue.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear what you said about what is the age of a young adult?
In the Reading Public Library, the young adult collection services grades 6 through 12. The children's room services birth to grade 6, so there's some overlap in that area.
How can a 6th grader be a young adult?
Thank you very much, Amy, for the presentation. So we next move forward with a discussion from the board of trustees. So do we have a motion for the board of library trustees to begin discussion?
So moved. I'll make a motion. Sorry. Just to begin discussion. Move to begin, yeah. I'll second the motion to begin discussion.
Excellent. We can begin our discussion.
Well, I'm happy to start at my end. For me, this is a pointed request that I think raises 3 questions for me personally. The first is, as the request, is the book qualify as child pornography? No children were harmed in the creation of this book, and it wasn't a recording. So the statute that was cited, and properly so by the first person to speak, is the PROTECT Act, which talks about visual representations. So we're not talking about the graphic picturing of an abuse that is continued through traditional child pornography. What we're dealing with is the PROTECT Act and whether the drawings at issue depict minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct that's prohibited by that. First, given the context of the book as a whole, which we need to take into account, not any specific pages or references, we need to look at the content as a whole. My review of it, several of the challenged things are drawings of adults engaged in sexual activity. I don't think it's minors. But putting aside a good-natured debate over that, the standard then becomes not only appropriate for community standards, as has been cited several times, but whether or not the book lacks serious artistic, political, and scientific merit. I think based on the review, that has been met, but I don't want to address that until my third point. So I don't think that it shows as child pornography. I think it's telling that in the several years since it's been out, there have been no prosecutions, to what I'm aware of, against the author, publishers, distributors, bookstores, libraries, or such. And in fact, I know there was even a politician in Massachusetts on the South Shore who was waving around certain pictures, accusing it of being child pornography. And she got a little quiet when the police came up to her and said, it looks like you're distributing child pornography. Second question then becomes for me. I do not believe this book is child pornography, so I move to, is it harmful to minors? That is what's in our policy. That is what is Massachusetts law. That is a modification of the Miller test. It is 3-pronged. I don't think this book comes close to meeting that when viewed as a whole, which is what is required. It's a coming-of-age story. It does not predominantly appeal to a prurient interest. I think it takes a very frankly, conservative view of sexual view and development over time as the person comes to their ultimate conclusions. I also don't think it's patently contrary to our community standards or to typical standards for teens when you read the entire book. But again, even if those are subject to good-natured debate, the ultimate test for harmful to minors takes a question, does it have any literary or artistic value for minors? And I think it meets that, and that prevents it from being viewed as either child pornography, obscenity, or harmful for minors. So then, for me, the last question becomes, does it meet the selection criteria of our development policy? So I've spent a lot of time with our collection policy in reviewing it, including the criteria that's used. There was a summary of the presentation today, and based on this, I think there's both the qualitative and quantitative data to support the book under the selection criteria for the relevance to the library, its missions, its usefulness and interest. I think some members of the public have spoken to that in and of itself. Popular demand, it seemed pre-January. I mean, there was a need to buy in January before this became an issue. I think that's somewhat telling. And I think it otherwise meets those standards. So I think with that, with the awards, with the recognition, I think it's appropriately meets our selection criteria. And for me, the story ends there. I understand there are strong feelings here. I believe everybody has their own interest. This is a library. We have a wide range of interests, a wide range of backgrounds. It needs to be provided. It has to be broader than school libraries. That's one of the points of a public library. Everybody in this room is going to find something objectionable in this building or available on this line. I have no doubt about that, but that's not really the test. When it comes to children and when it comes to teens, I believe it's up to the parents. I don't think it's my job sitting at this table to usurp the rights of parents as to what should be available. So that is my analysis of it, and I'm going to be voting against the request and request that it maintain in our collection. So that's my thinking on it.
I will ask for the same policy that we followed before and that we hold our applause. Thank you. Any additional comments?
I would just follow up on that. Thank you very much. I love the legal analysis. I knew you would do a great job.
That was not legal analysis. That was me in my individual capacity.
But I guess, I just like to emphasize, I think everyone on the Board of Trustees has taken this very seriously. I did get the book and I read the entire thing. And I have to say, while there are a couple of pages that have stuff that is, pushing the limits of what we see in everyday life. Sorry, I'll speak up. Yep. Just want to say, I think everyone on the trustees has taken this very seriously. I got the book and read the entire thing. And I think while there are a couple of pages that sort of push the limits of what we see in everyday life, it's not anything you can't see in primetime TV pretty frequently. And taking the book as a whole, I have to say, I have a couple of friends who've had kids who have questioned their gender, who have transitioned, things like that. And I've had a hard time understanding it. I've never really been able to have a long conversation with them about it. And I felt this book was really useful to me. So there's no question to me, just having read the book as a whole, if you read the book as a whole, this is a useful book in our society right now where all of a sudden trans issues are in front of us every day. And they're getting discussed in ways they never were when I was a kid. So I would encourage anybody who wants to try and understand what trans kids are sort of going through in their puberty years. This is a great example of that, I think. So then you just have the question, I think, I'm not going to vote to ban it. So the question is in the right place, in the teen room, or should it be adult? We've seen that some libraries around us have had it in their adult room. Some have it in the teen room. I think that's a little bit more of a question, but to me, more than half of this book is about their puberty years. And I'm sorry, that starts at 11. And I think that's probably when the biggest question, the biggest doubts go on. So I can't sort of overrule what the library staff has done and say that it's appropriate for teens. And clearly half the libraries in the area think it's appropriate for teens too. So I'm going to be voting against this and against moving it to the adult only.
We going right down the line or? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Cappy Pop. I will pretty much agree with Mr. Egan and Mr. Grimes along the lines of this book, especially as it pertains to it being a full ban or being removed from the collection. The big part being the Miller test that was briefly alluded to. One of the big things about that is whether or not we're applying contemporary community standards to a work. And that's, to me, the key here is contemporary. What may have been contemporary 30, 50 years ago is not now. This is a different world, and there's a different lens through which I believe we need to look and judge works of interest for our community. And secondly, being able to take the work as a whole. The biggest thing that I've seen about this before I had the pleasure actually of reading this book, because I had no idea about the controversy, was how everything was taken completely out of context. So we have a book from which things are taken out of context, and we've also had parents talking about how their children are seeing a world in which everything is taken out of context, namely social media, TikTok, and whatever. So I believe the fact that taken as a whole, this book offers incredible value to people that may need it. It also offered me value. I also have friends who are going through this with their own families, and I had absolutely no clue what it entailed, even how to speak to them about it, what pronouns meant, how people would even approach this. This book was very enlightening to me, and personally, I did not find it offensive in the sense that the graphic images that were described and shown, taken in context, actually were anti-sex in most cases, and showed the discomfort with which the protagonist had with their body, their sexuality, and their identity. And then whether or not the work is patently offensive for the sake of being offensive. Does it try to get a rise out of people? It absolutely does not. It explains the problem that this person has with their gender and how they're going about it. Does it reflect my personal beliefs, or do I have these issues? No, but it was an enlightening view of what they had. And finally, whether or not the work itself lacks any serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, I believe it has almost all. There are very few public discussions of the issues that face this part of our community, LGBTQI individuals, especially for people that have grown up in a very binary world. So from that alone, just from that, it's a very, I believe, serious or artistic work that should be taken. And along with the other statements that these gentlemen have said, and I'll also add freedom of speech and the fact that I don't want somebody to parent my kids. If my child got this book, I could easily say, hey, honey, that's not for you. If I was so inclined, she's 3, I wouldn't want her reading it. I wouldn't want to have to explain it to her. But if she did, I would have the discussion with her because that's my right as her father. For all that to be said, I also will be voting against removal from the collection or moving it to any other part of the library. It deserves to be where it is. Thank you very much.
Having spent 50 years as a public school and a college teacher, I can say, for one thing, that I've had many students who have had confusion about who they are. I had students when I was teaching at Salem State as an adjunct. I had one student who was going through a transition from becoming a male to a female. He explained the situation to me and said, starting next week, I'm going to be coming to class totally different. I just want you to know that. I agree with the gentlemen who have also spoken, my trustee colleagues, that parents have a right to make choices about what their children read. if parents of older children choose not to come to the library and not assist their children perhaps in seeking out books, then perhaps they need to check what their kids are bringing home. But I don't think that it's appropriate for one group of people to decide what all other children are able to read or not read. I also agree, as an English teacher for those 50 years, that the book has literary merit, explains what kids are going through. It's a confusing time going through puberty, and I think that this book discusses that in a very intelligent and well thought out way. As a memoir, it explains what individuals feel and how they feel. And as others have said, it was enlightening and edifying for me as well to understand students and kids and young adults in ways that I perhaps might not have understood them before. So I, as the others, will vote to maintain the book in the collection.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for all the thoughtful comments we received through email. I want you all to know that we read them all. And this was one of the reasons why we postponed the meeting after getting the RFR right before our trustee meeting in March, was so that we could give this thoughtful consideration and give you all an opportunity to be heard, both the people in this room, the people on Zoom, as well as the people who took time to write to us. So a sincere thank you. You helped us all understand this issue from a lot of different angles. And challenged us in our thinking. And I hope this all means that you're active library patrons and that you care about Reading as much as we do on both sides of the issue. I'm not going to reiterate what has been said, but I do think Pat did a great job of addressing the child pornography standards, which for me was a really key and shocking point of the request for reconsideration. And so I felt very comfortable that this is not pornography on many levels, least of which, thank you, Pat, for summarizing the legal for all of us. I want to read one thing that was sent in to our email box, which came from the Massachusetts Library Association. There are two sentences in this longer email that really stuck out for me. Individuals must make their own decisions about what they read and believe. While parents have the right to determine which library offerings fit their family's values, they do not have the right to determine what is appropriate for other people's children. And for me, that's the crux of this issue. I think as parents, we all want the best for our children, each of our children, and for those of us who have multiple children, know that each of our children's needs are different, and each of our children need to be supported uniquely. And I want every parent in this room to be able to support their child in the best way possible. I believe that a public library is about choice, and our role as trustees is to provide choice for our community. So I will also be supporting keeping this book in our collection.
Good evening. I also want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I think that the participation alone shows how much Reading is important to all of us that are here, and the decisions that we make are something that we are willing to discuss and hear one another as a community. I also want to thank the board for the work that we have done in regard to this particular topic. I have read the book as well. I also see the book as something that is extremely educational. I do work in higher education. That is my background. And so I work very heavily in student affairs with students who have reached that level in their life. And students have often talked about the feelings and emotions, et cetera, that they have gone through as they are talking about exploring and determining their gender. And it is very true that in regard to our transgender students, that the suicide rate
is extremely high. And in addition to that, we are working with our students and providing services, et cetera. And that's just not happening at one place, but that is happening all over our country. I do agree also, and we have spent time with our collection for our selection policy criteria and reviewed that as well. It will not be my vote to ban the book. I look forward to any other additional discussion that we may need to have. But again, I just want to recognize and thank all of us for coming together and having this discussion.
Sorry, discussion.
Yes.
Recognize?
All right. Thank you, board members.
Okay.
Pat.
I'll make a motion limited to, upon consideration of the March 6th, 2023 request for reconsideration of materials, I hereby move to reject the request to remove genderqueer from the library collection.
I second motion.
All in favor?
Oh, discussion.
Oh, yeah, any additional discussion? Yes. Thank you. All those in favor? Excellent. Opposed? Thank you very much. I thank folks for holding your applause till the end. We were going to take a 5-minute break before we come back to complete our meeting this evening. Thank you very much.
Great.
So I have to send Megan the timing for the speakers. Do I CC that?
Coming in?
I don't think we can.
Send it to her.
What about that I'll leave one open?
Yeah,
Amy,
okay.
what's the rule on closing the doors?
Yeah.
I don't think,
We okay with closing the doors, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should just speak up.
Thank you all for reconvening. Time is 8:38, and we are reconvening after our break. So we will move on to number 3 of our agenda, financial update, FY '23 and FY '24.
Great. I'll go ahead. Pat, if you can't hear me, let me know, just so not used to you being all the way down there. You have the financial report in your packet. We're doing really well. We're actually under budget, as usual. Doing a great job on that. Can we shut the doors? Megan, do you mind shutting the doors?
One of them?
Yeah. If Kathy was there, but thank you, Kathy, for speaking. You brought up something about the library budget. I can't remember what. So you brought up something at town meeting about the library.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it was about the recording.
The recording. So yes, as we are doing right now. Town meeting started on April 24th, I think, and the April 27th on Thursday was the budget portion. There were no questions regarding the library budget, which was 2.1 million, which is a 4.2 increase over FY '23. I just included a snapshot of the spending scorecard. This is in every single budget. It's something that I need to submit to the state when I do my financial aid, state aid application. I just find it's helpful. These numbers stay pretty steady in terms of, I'm looking at the next to last column, which says the last column, which says grand total percent. The library is steadily between 1.6, 1.7, 1.5. We always sort of are that of the entire town budget. So it just gives you a sense. So we make up 1.6 of the total budget and 6% of just the municipal budget that you see there, which is 33 million. So that just gives you a context of where, of all the power that you have on your on managing the library budget. Yeah, because, again, the rubbish and recycling is 1.5%, so.
Can I ask one question about it?
Sure.
What does encumbered mean? What is that column?
Oh, encumbered, yes. So encumbered means we've promised to pay it, and sometimes that's a purchase order for a larger item, or sometimes it's just a bill that we're just waiting for. Usually they're purchase orders that haven't been resolved. We have a purchase order out now for the lockers, like the yeah.
The wrap of the lockers.
Yeah, the wrap of the lockers, and they're basically saying you promise to pay us even if it takes us more than the fiscal year. So we can carry that number over. It doesn't affect our budget one way or the other. It's just a promise to pay.
Thank you.
So it's a term that's used in government accounting.
Yep.
Basically, normally government, like you say, budgets have to be wrapped up in the fiscal year. And so if there's something that spans multiple years, it becomes encumbered at the end of one year. So it's like it got spent in that year.
Yeah.
It's carried on. Thank you.
Amy, just because I'm not at town meeting, so I'm just curious. You made the point that town meeting approved the budget without any questions or discussions. Is that typical?
I would say, except for the time that we added the DESJ position, yes. There were questions for the school budget. That is very typical for the superintendent and the finance officer there to undergo some scrutiny. There's some usually questions, but I think that's very typical. Our budget is usually, this is the second one. Well, first one I've done fully with Fidel. The second one, the first one he actually had with Bob. Bob starts that process very, very early, and we work on it. We work on it so that by the time it gets to FinCom, it's usually a no-brainer. The other time that there was a question was the 1 year that we cut Sundays.
Oh, okay.
And that was just we didn't have enough money. And then, so for 1 year, we didn't have, the override didn't pass, we didn't have Sundays. And so then the override passed and we got Sundays back. But there were questions about that.
Thank you.
The budget report, which is available, actually, it's interesting. It has other little, beautiful little snapshots and things. I mean, if you're ever interested in the town budget, it is actually interesting to see how it goes out. We had very little gifts this month. It was $22 just in general cash. We definitely have months like that. And then it's just for a snapshot. If you don't mind, I'll go right into the director's report in the interest of time.
Absolutely. Yes, perfect.
This just our general snapshot. I've thought about kind of switching these up at some point. If there's any statistics that you do want to know, we keep statistics and statistics about our statistics. So if there's anything you want, you're more than welcome to ask. Our circulation just generally tells us people are checking things out. Overdrive is it's a big investment, so we want to make sure people are using it. Programs, obviously. Reference questions is just helpful. It lets you know that, if you think about 1,800 questions over a 30-day period, they're busy. Those people answering the phones are busy. And 182 museum passes. This is now returning to, more where we saw the museum passes before. It was April vacation week, so we usually see a little uptake with that. New library cards, again, these numbers usually run between about 70 and over 100, depending on it, but we are constantly getting new patrons because people are constantly moving out. And our visitors are still, I don't know if our visitors will actually really ever bump back up to the foot traffic that it was. But I will say that unfortunately, when we look at the times of this, it's not like, probably the slowest time is like between 11:30 and 1 p.m. on Tuesdays. They're not hours that would help close the library or save money. I mean, not that we want to, because we need to be open a certain number of hours, but they're not really helpful. It's just sort of, I think we don't have those huge children's programs. We're not promoting huge children's programs like we used to have 100 people every Friday for Peter Sheridan. We just don't do that. It's not, doesn't feel sanitary. Yes. But yeah, they haven't really gone back to that model yet. And there just is this, and I appreciate it, there's this real focus on getting smaller, more intimate programs for kids that include their caregivers or adults or small focus groups like their cooking and STEM. Can't do that for 100 kids. So this was actually a little bit of the financial. I made an executive decision, and I really appreciated your support at last month's meeting about the period equity initiative. You had approved $1,350 to pay for the 3 dispensers, and that was to be one on the ground floor, one on the main floor, and then one of the family bathrooms upstairs. And our vendor came and said, "Oh, but if you got 5, I'll give you a great discount, and you won't have to pay for installation." So I went ahead and did 5 because I figured by the next time I went to go get it, they would probably cost more. So this allows us to put them in the 2 family restrooms, the 2 gender neutral restrooms, and the women's restroom on the ground floor. So those have all been installed. And I originally had said we would use foundation funds for this, but I realized we do have like $1,800 or something in a leftover grant that does appear in our summary of gifts. So I'm going to use that money because it does have to do with access to health.
Is that really from 2009?
Yeah, it was not a federal grant. It was like a local grant from like a hospital or health system. And we did a bunch of health training and we had a health fair and we just never used it and they didn't want the money back. So it's just sort of been sitting in our gifts and donations for a lot of years. So seemed like a really good use for it. I'm really excited. I was going to include the picture of the wrap, but I decided not to. And we are working on IT. We no longer have the big blue cart. We have this little black cart. It was an interesting time to set up for today. Patrick was here.
At least
6 hours. We were trying to get things, making sure things were going. Yeah, thank you to Patrick. So some of the things that we ran into, which are really typical, but just that we'll have to look for, we ran an update on the software and then it crashed. And, so it's not just a matter of owning the equipment and plugging it in. I just want to be very clear that, we're going to have to make sure updates are run. And then one of those pieces conked out and he had to go get another one from town hall, which, He has to go and bring that back over to town hall tomorrow. So I think the hybrid technology for this room and the conference room, I think it's going to be good. I think it's just, we're going to have to really, we as librarians or the library staff are going to have to be a lot more independent about, you know, okay, it's the first of the month, let's go down and check all the equipment, let's make sure we run all the driver updates, let's make sure we run all the system updates, check, you know, do a check, we don't, you know, do a check a week before the trustee meeting to make sure everything's running. So I appreciate it. I agree that it's important that we do. I just, one of the things I want to make sure it's clear is this, there is a human cost to this as well. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it because of that, but Patrick did outstanding this afternoon, so I cannot say enough. He was great.
Hey, can I ask a question before we move on?
Yeah.
Going back to the wrap solutions, is that coming out of foundation gifts or is that a separate item?
No, I think it's included under the foundation gifts because we wrapped it in with the locker. Like, ha ha ha. We wrapped it in with the locker, the cost for the lockers.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
And we used a local vendor for that. So we're very excited to do that. And just for the record, we do try to use local vendors when we can. Usually that means the project has to be smaller. One of the vendors we have for the tween spot, the designer is local. He literally lives around the corner from us, and he's the guy doing the 3D kind of like turning a bench into a bookcase and adding and making it part of the tree. He's done work for the children's, but he's local. So we do try to do that when we don't have to go out for huge national bids and things like that. I just wanted to circle back around. I know there were some questions at the last meeting. I did consult with town council, and we are in compliance with all Massachusetts laws regarding query checks. We do perform query checks on employees and volunteers who work at the library doing things like homebound service. The only thing I would add to that is I think it's important. I do acknowledge, and I've been working with public services. I understand that there's I don't want to say an optics, because we shouldn't do things just for optics, but we want to make sure that we are presenting both safety, security, as well as financially, that we are doing due diligence when we do our programs. So the staff will be working on I think we're going to try and work on some sort of, if not a contract, then some sort of document that just says, oh, hey, we engaged you to come sing the thing, or, to present. I don't know. Will we get Hank Philippi Ryan to sign this thing when she comes and does her author talk? I don't know. But one of the things we may do is say, like, here's the date you're coming. Here's the amount that we're going to pay you. Oh, by the way, do you happen to query check any of your employees? It's not a required answer. It's not anything else, but it is one way that we could at least ask. If we were to ask Mystic Valley Elder Services to come to a Shine program, pretty sure they do query check everything. So we just might say, yeah, you're coming, you're going to do financial counseling. By the way, do you query check your staff? It's a question. It doesn't have to require a yes or no, but it is one way just to, if we are nervous or apprehensive about a particular program, we could follow up with the vendor and ask for more information. It's not even asking what we're checking the query check for. Right. So.
What's the downside of asking for that answer to be completed? What's the downside of saying, yeah, that's a required
question? I don't know that there is. I guess the only thing is if it would turn someone off. I mean, I guess if would we be willing to really say that if someone says they don't want to do it? My only concern would be that, because I do think we should ask for everybody. And what if someone's like, well, yeah, if you do a query check on me, you're going to see my pot charge when I was 21, and they just don't know why we're checking, or they don't know. I don't know. So I guess that's what I'd like to make it optional. I also want to make sure that I'm not violating the law, but we're not asking if they've had a criminal offense, but you can't ask that on a job interview, but you can do it. You run a query check. How does that work? We can't ask you if you've been convicted of crime when we interview you, but we can rescind an offer if we find.
But this isn't a hire. This is a vendor that we're paying.
Yeah. Or sometimes they're free, but yeah.
We're engaging services, which is different than employment. I just want to think through what would be the downside if we're going to go through the diligence of creating this questionnaire and collect information. What would be the downside of requiring that?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things, maybe, you and Al, when we can include you on the conversation, it would be great to have some trustee and, thoughts.
Okay,
but sure. Just because the bigger things I'm more concerned about, I don't care about query checks. No, I do. I do care about query checks. But, my more concern is like, okay, you said you were coming and then there was a snowstorm. Do we pay you or do we not pay you? Or we canceled 24-hour advances or you can't cancel 24 hours in advance. You did a lot of preparation for this. Do we owe you 50%? We don't do deposits. We can't do deposits. So that makes a lot of vendors very nervous. So sometimes they do say, well, if you cancel within 72 hours, you owe me the whole fee. So sometimes we have to negotiate those things. So I think financially, it really behooves us to have that information documented somehow, and things like that. So I think overall, us having some sort of agreement, generic, very high level generic fill in the blank kind of form, it would also have did you send us your W-9, that kind of thing. So those are things we need to have in. So we can definitely add a question, and I think it would be what type of question, what's the requirement, would it stop us, or when would it red flag us? So that's the Corey discussion. Any discussion, any other questions about that before I go on to program highlights?
I had a quick one that isn't really germane to that, but one thing about Corey that's always been a problem is the protection of the information once it's collected.
Yeah.
And I didn't see anywhere in Reading's general bylaws, is that something that the library would have to maintain? Like, do you have to maintain that for your employees, or is there like a central?
HR does that.
Okay.
We do that. We request HR to run them when we have volunteers. And I agree, that's one of the ththings of like, I don't want that information anywhere in my hands.
Major legal problem.
Yeah, so I think that's specifically why I don't necessarily want to do the Corey checks on everybody, because once I have it, I have it. But I think if you're the vendor and you're able to say like, you know what, I understand your concerns. Yes, I do. Yes, we're all set. Or no, I don't. And I don't think it's, no, I don't. And we at least know one way or the other. And the question has been asked. But I agree that information, that is one of the things. I appreciate you pointing that out. It's real hard. Sometimes we collect information that we don't want to have. So.
It's more of a burden with that than it is the core check itself. It's keeping that stuff safe.
I just wanted to call out, we got some really great feedback from a couple of folks on our Citizen Kids series and from the Bouncing Broomsticks, which is a fantasy book club. It's really great when we have these programs, particularly for young people, and then we have parents writing and they're stopping by and talking about it. So we got a couple of nice shout outs there. And the job search series finished up and everyone seemed to find that it was very helpful. I also wanted to just point out, so we've had Susan Beauregard in the position of community health librarian, and she's been working very much closely with the Department of Health. She's helped set up all those, I know Megan does too, the screenings and the testing and the vaccinations, but she's also been working with multiple, and our CASA doing the relationship drink, the intimate relationship between women and alcohol book group. That was a collaborative program with the Reading Coalition. So she's been really great in kind of bringing this focus on mental health and physical health and the connections between those. I called that out because I know I've seen, I feel like some of the comments we've heard recently are about, all the things the library doesn't do, and the library does offer health programs. We offer programs for older adults. I know Ally has brought you up to date on that, but we do understand and are concerned about both substance use issues as well as mental health in people of all ages in our community. So we are definitely working on that. Also, as you know, thank you very much for helping to support the community DEI audit. We did finally get our RFP responses. Sudeshna Fidel and Assistant Town Manager Matt Cornelis and I went through that, and we selected someone. Their name is Opportunity Consulting. They also did work with Arlington, I believe, and I think another community. And they outlined 5 phases. You all will be included on this. We have outlined you as well as the select board as a specific stakeholder. This is a tiny little bit of a twist for them in that usually they are just reporting to a select board, but as you are financing 2/3 of this project and we expect some of this data to go back into our strategic planning process, I think it's really important that they spend time with you all in at least one focus group meeting, or one-on-ones, however they can do it, to talk to you about your concerns and questions about the community, the state of DEI in our community.
What would the rest of the community participation be beyond that?
So it's a combination of focus groups, surveys. They're going to do a survey, and I think maybe like one town meeting. I'm not sure, like not town meeting, but like town hall thing, like an event, like come in here and meet with people. They'll do a variety of, they're not local. I think they're from DC, but they do a mix, a couple trips up here, and then they do some online things as well. And I think you weren't on the board, but Monique, you were involved with our last strategic plan, and Monette, you came to some of the meetings, right? It was online with that company from Virginia.
Yeah,
and
I was involved.
And I was, we did that during COVID, and I was very like, I can't believe we're paying people to do this virtual stuff for the strategic plan, and I think it came out well, so I know it's possible. So I'm very excited to see, really to kind of, if we bring our core values and our mission to them and say, like, this is what we want to look at. We want to see what the community needs with regards to this. I think we'll be able to get some good data back. So they do both quantitative and qualitative analysis, which is nice. And I'm just always pleased to see the variety of folks who use our community room. 16 is a little less than normal, but I think that's also because, again, it was vacation week, so might have been taking a break. We've had a busy personnel month. I hope you all were able to catch Rebecca Bailey on Jeopardy. That was actually the night of town meeting. So I know some people, Rebecca actually is a town meeting member and did not attend, but she had a little.
It's much better watching her than going to town meeting.
I know.
I called her out in town meeting.
I did watch her and she was really great. I thought she was going to win. I was really bummed out, but.
We're very proud of her. Because, librarians, there have been a number of librarians.
Have been.
So we are very pleased to announce that Olivia McElwain, has accepted the librarian 2 position. I think last month I reported that Kate wanted to move to outreach.
Yes.
And Olivia was ready, and, we had some long talks. We did have an open search, and we had a couple other applicants. Olivia was qualified. We did a full interview, and just as a reminder, the librarian 2 is a senior library position, not senior as in old, just senior as in more responsibility. So she will be what we call the team lead for the children's room. She will coordinate the programming, desk coverage, and children's services. So she kind of oversees everybody else and helps, works with Ally to keep everybody moving in the same direction and corral all the great ideas and make sure that when we have staffing issues that somebody's at the desk. I really think this is a great opportunity. I would have expected, and I'm pretty sure she was interviewing for other leadership positions. She has her master's degree in children's literature as well as library science. She's been here for about 5 years. It would be very typical for her to move on. I'm very pleased we were able to offer an internal promotion to her. We've also been searching to replace Melissa Selden as the Reference and Elder Services Librarian. We're very excited that we'll have someone joining us starting May 15th, but the interviews and all of that went through 2 rounds of interviews. And one of the things I just would like to update you on is that when we do interviews, it's particularly for all levels of hiring, we've now moved to a model that the interview teams include we try to include people from other departments or divisions on the interview team, as well as multiple levels of professionals and paraprofessionals, just because we want to make sure that we're kind of looking at it holistically, not in a siloed way. So this, Elizabeth was interviewed 2 rounds with 2 different teams and passed her reference checks. So we're very excited to have that position starting soon as well. So finally, we'll only have 1 vacancy, which is Olivia's position. And hopefully, if we can get that hired in the next month or 2, we'll actually be fully staffed.
Yes, excellent. Congratulations.
I know, it's been crazy since last fall, I think. So before I go on, I just need to also I think Pat called me, and he called me on kind of a down day. I was like, he asked me a question. I'm like, Pat, I can't talk to you. The toilets are flushing and the lights are on, okay? The library's running. I can't answer your question. We've also had someone out with a broken leg. We've had someone out. These people are out for like upwards of weeks someone to go take care of an elderly parent who needed to be moved to hospice care. We had someone else who had to go out of town for a funeral on top of people who are already on vacation, and 2 or 3 people who went down with COVID. They can't come back for like a whole week. So this was all during April. And I really did mean it. Like, as long as the toilets are flushing, the lights are on, we were going with that was a good day. So I just really needed to shout out to this staff is amazing and are just able to cover it all. And I don't think it shows on the outside. We all know the stuff that gets dropped, but they do a really good job of making sure services and programs continue even when people had to pull overtime shifts and shifts they don't normally work, which is sometimes a sacrifice to a family. So really great team coming here. So, and we have 2 new library associate substitutes, which will help us as we head into vacation time over the summer and then for Sundays next year.
Amy, just a quick question before you move to the next topic.
Yeah.
With the vacancy focusing on tweens, is that a new direction, like specific to support this tween space? So there's someone dedicated?
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about whether it should be like, because in reference we have elder services and we have teen services, and the children's team is a little hesitant to make it like only specific to teens, but yes, this person would be responsible, like the programming that they would constantly be thinking about has to do with tweens, I'm sorry. That used to be sort of just older adults, upper elementary, but we are really focusing on this because that is a really kind of term of art now. And it really is talking about too old for this, too young for that, and really awkward spaces. So she's working, Olivia, that was Olivia's baby to get that tween spot off the ground. She's going to continue to do the large management of it, but the person we hire will primarily focus, but probably have to do a baby lap sit sometime.
Okay.
So. And we have Ashley with 15 years and Kate with 5 years. So we have anniversaries pretty much every month. So we're doing all sorts of things. We're getting another book digitized. Andrea is continuing her work with intellectual freedom. The Antiquarian Society is looking to do, and the Historical Commission are going to be working on the 250th American Revolution, some sort of event in December. We will be part of that. We are not leading that. We are assisting, facilitating, supporting. We have a lot of other programs we're going to be working on, initiatives, but we don't want to ignore that. So Jocelyn's going to be helping out with that. And summer visits. Our students, our librarians go out to the elementary schools, and Megan McCabe will visit the middle schools. But they visit all 5 elementary schools. They talk to, I think, all grades at some point throughout the day. They spend a ton of time in the schools promoting the summer reading program. So it's a really exciting time. It's a busy time. So as you know, we've sort of fallen into this tradition of getting summer staff t-shirts, kind of going along with the theme. Last summer's was green. It was really cool. It was like camping. I'm just offering this if you are interested. We usually pay for this out of our staff development fund. Staff are not required to get them, but we have a number of people. If you're interested in having one, we absolutely can get one for the trustees if they're interested. And finally, there's just the list of selected professional development. Again, just really a wide variety of what people are doing. I hope you all got the notice about doing your conflict of interest stuff. Maybe, did Laura contact you?
I asked her about it. I have not seen an email from her.
Okay.
It's coming out soon.
Yeah, she may not have sent it out to the boards. It's a little off because normally we try to do this in the second half of the we switch off. 1 year you do the full training, 1 year you just say, yeah, I got a copy of it and I've read it. It's a signature acknowledgement. There's a new automated system where you go in and you log on, you create an account, and then it's just always there, option A, option B. And then you complete it and it gives you a little certificate number. We're supposed to send that to Laura. It's possible that, they're still working out the kinks because it's a state system. It's the first time they've launched it. Our staff have completed what they needed to do. So if you want to reach out to Laura and ask her about it, that would be great. Just, everybody has to do it, so.
It came out April 25th, I'm seeing it.
Okay. Kathy probably has to do it. You probably have to do the whole training because you've never done
Yeah,
it.
I think it went to everybody. It says, good day, board, committee, and commission members.
Okay.
Required of all members and employees of town government, the yearly conflict of interest and ethics training.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
She says it must be completed by mid-May.
Okay,
Hello.
I don't have it. I'll reach out to them.
Yeah, so it came out April 25th.
Yeah. You are supposed to do it online. If it's not possible to do it online, Sherry, we can, if you need, we can probably figure out something.
Yeah, okay.
And there's something like if you use Chrome, it works better. We had several people who were using Google Fire, or like Firefox, and it didn't work, but Google Chrome works really well.
Yeah, I don't have Google Chrome, I don't think.
We have a laptop with that. We can walk you through that. All right. I think that's all I have. Do you guys have any other questions about services?
I think we're all blind copied, BCC training. So she has us blind copied, so I can't say if it went to you or not.
Any additional questions for Amy regarding the director report?
Meeting law, right?
Yeah, sorry. Not open meeting law, ethics and conflict of.
Oh, ethics.
Conflict of interest, yeah.
BCC training is the regarding line. And it came out April 25th.
Just look and see if I still have it.
BCC
I
training.
did some deleting the other day, getting stuff up.
It might have gone to your spam too, if it was a groupie.
No, I probably deleted it without reading it carefully.
Amy, one thing I just want to ask is that I feel like I learned a lot through this process of this request for reconsideration. And it made me really think about a lot of things in our collection, in our policy for request for reconsideration.
Yep.
So I would really like it if we could find time in a future meeting to look at our policy again as a whole board and have a discussion around now that, for me, I feel like this was the first time I saw our policy in action. And so I'd like to look back on the policy in this context and make sure that the policy works and maybe there are some things we want to add or just do some due diligence.
Would you like board members to sort of chime in and send things to me for integration, or just start with what does the staff recommend and then bring it to the board and let you guys talk about it? And then again, do the second. It's up to you. I mean,
I think I like the second approach. I'd really like the staff to think about.
Yeah.
Because I know the staff was all involved in this too. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, yes.
What was their experience with this and what do they think, were there gaps? Do they think there are things we're missing? You know, does that make sense to everybody to kind of look back on that now after going through this?
I agree.
So
I like the latter.
I know you're not going to be here at June and we'll have to talk about this, the FY24 meetings, but I would like, what I would like to do is present at one meeting any changes or updates from the staff, have a full discussion with hopefully some agreement of where we're going to land on changes, and then actually not, like we have been doing, not vote on it or not, just, not vote on it until a second meeting. So we would plan for that to be 2 specific meetings. And so we can, we can start the process in June, but we can also look into the summer months to do it as well. It depends. We can talk with the chair about, vice chair, about that, because June's coming right up.
Yeah. Okay.
If we have no other questions for Amy, our discussion regarding the director report, we will move to item number 5, approval of minutes from the April 10th, 2023 meeting.
I had a couple comments on it.
Ready?
Page 2. Just to qualify, there's a paragraph, second full paragraph on that page that begins, Mr. Egan informed. The second sentence said, boards may not shut down public comments and residents can voice their disagreement without being removed. I just want to clarify, boards can set up time restrictions on public comment, but cannot silence someone because of a disagreement with what they're saying. Obviously, we can put time and manner restrictions on it. And I just wanted to clarify that. And the next comment, where I noted the residency requirement, the point before that is I had reported on a email to the Bolt mailbox on the issue of questioning the need for identification of people who make a request and a question of whether the process could remain confidential. So that was the question, comment, concern that was raised, and I was just reporting on that there. So I may be adding a sentence, Mr. Egan reported on an email about the extent to which people making requests, names need to be public. I'll move to my other highlights.
Yes.
Page 5, second to last paragraph, Mr. Egan acknowledged that Joe McDonough. In the second to last sentence, Mr. Egan pointed out that no one has this issue with the board directly. I would just say no one has raised this issue to the board directly. And the last sentence about open meeting law being extended, I did not know that, so somebody else provided that.
That was probably me. Open, or Zoom was extended. Was it remote?
Yeah, well,
That might have been me.
I couldn't remember, but I could remember it wasn't me.
I do know that I knew that.
On page 9, it's just a kind of typo thing. Second paragraph, last sentence. The library requested a flowering tree to replace a dead tree outside the main.
Outside the main.
So outside the main library entrance, I guess, so just maybe eliminate the or outside.
There's an extra the before outside.
Yeah. So the before outside, I guess, can be eliminated.
Any other changes? Any other changes?
Well, that's all I found. Well, I tried really hard and that was it.
Thank you all. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
All in favor? All opposed? All right. Excellent.
Monette, I think there's substantive enough changes that we can rewrite them. Would you be able to come in within the next 48 hours to sign those?
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, so we'll get those out tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Any other business this evening?
Just one item.
Yes.
And I apologize, given the number of public comment we had, I neglected 2 emails that have come into the mailbox, one this afternoon and another from over the weekend, not related to the book issue, but 2 other issues that will be shared with the board. So just to flag it. One issue was concerning a Craftism Embroidery 101 program that is being put on by the library and sponsored by the Friends, and the email is concerned that the person perhaps running it is approaching it with a political view or bias, and gave some samples of embroidery that I didn't see on our website or anything, but probably, presumably, is from the person behind it. So the suggestion was that it would be better just to appeal to anyone interested in learning about embroidery, but maybe not with politicized embroidery, particularly when focused on middle schoolers and high schoolers. So that is one that will be fully circulated to the extent it hasn't been. And then the second was an email related to co-sponsorship of the Pride Parade where for the 2023 parade, it is sponsored by the library, the Office of Equity, as well as Pop Huddle. And the complaint was that the library should not be co-sponsoring events with political groups. And that will also be shared. So I apologize for not bringing those up in the flood of comments earlier. And that is it from the mailbox.
Pat, on that, I just wanted to comment one thing on the Craftism email. The person did not provide their full name and address. So in the past, I've followed up with people and they haven't, because that was one of our tenets of providing public comment, is that it is a Reading resident. So I just want to share that piece of feedback.
That is fair. That is, you are right. We have one name and one email address. So that may not, well, public comment from a non-resident, potentially or not. This was also directed at the trustees and the Friends, so I did forward it to the Friends email. But again, both of these emails will be shared.
Can we request this person's name?
That's what I've done in the past, is I've just
So we know who
shared
they are?
our policy on public comment, and I've had people get right back and say, I'm sorry, here's the information, you know, happy to share it. So.
Any additional other business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? So. Right.
Second. Sorry.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you all very much. We have adjourned our meeting at 9:19 p.m.
Yeah.